said this before, that with David Cronenberg's films, I'm such a huge fan of his, and I realized that I probably was watching his films without necessarily realizing that even he was Canadian, or that they were shot in Toronto. So I was thinking about it in terms of what the first David Cronenberg film that I saw, and it was probably The Dead Zone, and then The Fly, and then I went back and saw his earlier films. So I was thinking that must have been the first time I saw Toronto on the big screen. And then I thought, no, it was Police Academy 2, their first assignment. I'd be lying if I said that on The Dead Zone first. So, so apologies for that. It would have been a cooler story if it had been The Dead Zone. But, I mean, David Cronenberg is obviously, like, you should be very, very proud of him. I see him as the real Prime Minister of Canada. And I think he's one of the only directors who's done horror films who's managed to completely escape the stigma of making horror films. And I remember when me and Simon did a cameo on Land of the Dead, George A. Romero's film, he asked us this was before I made Hot Fuzz, and he asked me what I was making next, and I said, oh, we're making this cop film. And he said, oh, so it's not a horror film? I said, no, and he goes, oh, so you're getting out. And that's interesting in terms of, like, there are other very talented filmmakers who kind of, once they've made a horror film, have, you know, been sort of, it's been a millstone around their neck in terms of that they've only been able to work in that genre. And David Cronenberg is such an incredible artist that you don't even call him a horror filmmaker anymore. He's an artist, he's an auteur, he's one of the best kind of international filmmakers, you know, on this planet. And the fact that he's made so many horror films and yet he's just seen as an artist as opposed to a horror filmmaker is just a testament to his talent. And The Brood is one of my favourite films of his. It's probably my favourite Cronenberg film. But what's also amazing is that it goes back to a time when horror films used to be about something. And I can't think of the last horror film, the last North American horror film that was really about something beyond, you know, Let the Right One In was a fantastic film last year. But certainly all of the horror remakes, all of the wave of horror remakes of the last kind of 5-10 years, none of them have really been about anything. And that's not to say that you can't remake a film and make it about something, because The Fly is a perfect example. So is like Philip Kaufman's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And all of Cronenberg's earlier works are amazing metaphorical horror films, and The Brood being no exception. And none of the recent crop of remakes are really about anything at all, apart from rebranding it for the young generation. So it's really good to see kind of like The Brood, which was at its time kind of reviled by some as a B-movie, but is really intelligent and has a theme and is, you know, something to chew on in both senses of the word. So I think it's an incredible film, and I'm really, really pleased that we're showing it tonight. Mr. Cronenberg is not with us tonight, but he did send his love and he did help us get this print. And he did say that this is an old film which meant a lot to him at the time, and he hopes it holds up, which I'm sure it will. I'm really excited to see it. But I do have another surprise, because the star of The Brood, who's also star of many cult classics, including Black Christmas, and also one of my personal favourites, Philip Kaufman's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Art Hindle is here, star of The Brood. Oh, you're right there. Hello. This man faced The Brood. Thank you so much for coming.
I was a little worried there when Peter had the worst movie, because I might have been in that one too. I've kind of had a checkered career. But this was one of my highlights, working with David in 1978 doing this. He didn't have a lot of money. I hate to tell you what the budget was. I know what it is, and I'm not gonna tell you, because then you'll be looking at the movie all night going, you know, of course it looks like that. But he saved a lot of money on me, that's for sure. But I hope you enjoyed tonight, and Edgar and I are going to be here after the screening and try to clear up any questions you might have. Okay?
Yeah. Well, let's. I have the plot keywords for The Brood. I want to know how many people have seen The Brood before. How many Brood virgins are in the house? let me just see whether there's any spoilers here, because I don't really want to ruin it for people. I'll do a little... I could do it sort of like I'll just go through them quickly. Children, mutant gore, reparenting therapy, experimental psychotherapy, midget blood, child murder, dead children, bloody body of child, serial killer, psychotherapy, fetus, grindhouse strangulation, 12 favorite attic, anger therapy, psychiatry, killer child, experiment, murder, Toronto, Ontario.
Yeah! How am I supposed to stop the end of the world?